We start off our day in Marysville, Ohio, at a place by the railroaders called Dipple. Here we see Scott's fertilizer sitting in the background. In the foreground, engine RSS X46 is seen sitting, warming up, ready to start the day. 46 comes back as ex-Southern Pacific after doing a little bit of research. Over on the CSX main, M313 is seen sitting tied down. The crew had just gotten here after the train had tied down overnight. The new crew will get on and take the train to Ansonia, Ohio. They'll make a left turn to get on the Indy line. A little bit later, M313 gets permission from the dispatcher and his track authority up to Ridgeway to take the train there. Once at Ansonia, the crew van will take them all the way back to Parsons in Columbus. Our next spot was at Lewis Center, Ohio, along the Sandusky District and the CSX Burt line. The old signal tower in Lewis Center is still standing here, thankfully. Also, over on the Sandusky District are 2 sets of defect detectors and a couple NS maintenance trucks sitting down the way. 08:43 a.m. and here comes our second train of the day, NS northbound 178. He's running northbound, but timetable westbound, since technically the line comes west out of Norfolk, Virginia. This is Daily Manifest out of Irondale, Alabama to Bellevue, Ohio.
Milepost 25.7 track 2, no defects.
The defect detector you guys probably just heard on there is milepost 25.6 all the way up at the north end of Delaware. That tells us that there is a southbound coming on the inside track, and it won't be long until he gets here. Not even 3 minutes later, after 178 cleared, southbound NS train 266, Chicago to Columbus daily, is seen flying southbound with a pair of BNSFs. Not even 5 minutes after 266, we observe a northbound loaded coal drag heading towards Sandusky, with a Dash 9 leader and a Union Pacific SD-70 Ace trailing second out. next location shown here is the CCC&I depot on the CSX Burt line. This old track that's now part of the siding was the old main line. Depot is seen here getting some renovations done. The Frisco passenger car is still here sitting next to the silos. It actually turns out through a little bit of research that this actually comes back to Rio Grande Western. It's likely this car will be sitting here forever. Our next spot was milepost 26 on the Sandusky District. Here, the same coal drag we saw back at Lewis Center had come to a stop because of 178 sitting ahead of him at Troyton, waiting for NS 276 to clear, who we see now coming flying southbound past Delaware. This is daily Chicago, Illinois to Norfolk, Virginia intermodal. After 276 cleared Troyton, 178, who we saw earlier, moved up, and now the coal train gets his turn to move up. He'll dog 178 all the way up to Bellevue, and then go past the yard and head up to Sandusky. Before you know it, all of Norfolk Southern's Dash 9s will be gone completely, as either they've been scrapped or turned into C6Ms, which has gotten mixed reviews from rail fans. Now, personally, I'm not a big fan of the new C6Ms, preferring the old classic sound of the Dash 9 instead. Here we are, set up now at Troyton, S31.2 on the Sandusky District, continuing our trip north. The signal caught our attention and approached diverging, telling the crew to proceed through here at medium speed through the switch and then stop at the next signal. The Cisco container has been here for a while. Norfolk Southern maintenance away crews use it to store equipment. The track here is obviously to store maintenance equipment on it. A little bit later, the signal changes to a diverging clear, telling the crew to proceed at medium speed through the switch, then proceed at maximum speed. It wasn't long later until NS train 271 shows up. 271 is daily Detroit, Michigan to Norfolk, Virginia. About 10 minutes later, and the signal at Troyton goes back to a red over approach. This is for yet another train, this time southbound 18M, who is being led by the NS Original Heritage Unit number 8114 and a Union Pacific AC-44CW. 8114's horn, as you can tell, has been getting pretty fouled recently. Our next location on this day would be at Galion, Ohio. We were only there for a little bit and saw one train here. The train in question was M204, who was lined with a flashing yellow to go eastbound. In this old picture by John F. Borkland, we see an Erie freight train passing by one of the depots that used to stand here in Galion. Back to present day, and we finally see Autorack train M204 rounding the corner at Galion. The track verging off to the left back there is the Burt line that runs down to Columbus. We then continued on east into Crestline. This is where the former NYC Big Four crossed the PRR's Chicago line. Well, basically their own Chicago line. The Conrail Tri-Lights are still up and standing. We didn't have time to check out the Pennsylvania signals, but we'll be back to do that someday. On the west end of Crestline, there is a yard here. The yard still has something very cool, in my opinion. A PRR signal bridge with Conrail Tri-Lights, and posing under the Tri-Lights is an ex-Conrail Jeep with a Conrail caboose back there in the background. Pretty lucky. On the west end of Crestline is West Yard on the Fort Wayne line. There is another PRR signal bridge with more Conrail Tri-Light heads. With the Conrail Tri-Lights being replaced here soon, and just about everywhere else, this is a pretty cool sight to see. Our next town that we visited is Greenwich, where 4 subs begin: the Willard sub, Greenwich sub, Newcastle sub, and the Mount Victory sub. We happen to be up here as M204, the same train that we saw back at Galion, comes rolling in eastbound. He'll get a new crew in Collinwood Yard in Cleveland before his trip on towards Buffalo, New York. One of our last few location spots on this day was the Diamond at Greenwich. This is where 4 subs begin: the CSX Indy line to Indy, the CSX Greenwich sub to Cleveland, the CSX Willard Terminal sub to Willard, and the Newcastle sub to Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Coming off the Greenwich sub and heading west on the Indy line is M363. Led by an SD70 Mac rebuild leader. Of note on M363 are those high cube boxcars, 2 of them with the Chessy Cat logo. This train would end up stopping at Crestline to get a new crew before eventually continuing west. 363, like its counterpart M364, are known as the Lange Barge Manifest, although 364 majority of the time is significantly bigger than 360. One of our other last locations is New London, Ohio on the Greenwich sub, just a little bit north of Greenwich. Cool thing to find that we did see was this New York Central Freight Depot. It actually dates back to the 1800s, probably earlier, late 1896. I can't exactly remember. Another weird thing of interest next to it is an original Pennsylvania Railroad boxcar. Pretty cool. On our way back home, we accidentally ended up bumping into CSX train I-147 over on the Scotts Lawn at Marysville. This train would go north to Galatée, just east of North Baltimore, before turning. Well, that's it from me this evening. I'm currently working on a Norfolk Southern Sandusky video, and I should have that out in a couple of months. In the meantime, I will have other videos out in between. Thank you guys for joining and watching. Hope you guys like it and subscribe, and stick around for more. I'm CSC Productions, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.